EK sexually assaults my daughter. Finds out the hard way she's been taught to take care of herself. This is my second story, and I want to share a moment that really tested my beliefs as a father. As an Iraqi war veteran, I've always believed in teaching the women and girls in my life to defend themselves. So, from the age of 4, I started teaching my daughter how to stand up for herself. One day at work, I received a call from my daughter's school. I stepped outside to take the call, and the conversation went like this. "Hello, this is the principal. I need you to come pick up your daughter. Can I ask what this is about?" I replied, feeling uneasy. "Your child has been in a fight and needs to leave the school." "What do you mean she's been in a fight? What happened?" I was confused. She wouldn't just pick a fight. "Well, from what we can tell, a boy was running up behind her and grabbing her. She warned him to stop. And when he didn't, she knocked him out cold." "So what's happening to the boy?" I asked, my heart racing. "Well, your daughter seems to be the aggressor, and we need her to leave. She's going to be suspended." At that moment, I remembered my ex-wife telling me about ongoing issues my daughter had with this boy. She had reported him multiple times, but nothing had changed. Wait, so nothing is going to happen to the boy who has been bothering my daughter for so long? Mr. Terminator, she did strike him once. She needs to learn that violence is not the answer and should have reported it to a teacher. I was furious. "So, your school is saying it's okay for a boy to grab a girl and that she should just keep being a victim. Is that the gist of it?" There was silence as the principal tried to process what I had just said. "Here's what's going to happen next," I continued. "You can either punish both or punish neither. Because I promise you, the last thing you want is me showing up with reporters to blast your school over this." I took a deep breath. I understand that my daughter hitting him is unacceptable, but I will not stand for him not being punished as well. Do I make myself clear? Yes, sir," the principal replied. "Also, why are you calling me and not her mother?" "Well, Mr. Terminator, she told us to call you. You listen to me. I demand a meeting with you, her teacher, and this boy's family. If I can't make it, my ex-wife will. If this isn't resolved to my satisfaction, I will bring chaos upon your school. Do you understand me?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Call my ex and let her know the time and date. We'll coordinate from there." I hung up and called my ex. She agreed with me, and I returned to work. About a week later, there was a meeting, but I couldn't attend, so my ex went in my place. From what I was told, the boy's family tried to brush it off as boys will be boys, and even attempted to get my daughter expelled. My ex stood her ground, reminding them that they didn't want me getting more involved than I already had. In the end, both kids were suspended for 4 days, and the boy was moved to a different class. After that, I never received a call like that again. The moral of the story? My kid is a tough little warrior. She got a cake for standing up for herself, and a lot of love from both me and my ex. Fiancé left me due to my cancer diagnosis. I left her destitute. This story begins 4 years ago, and while the sting has faded, the memory remains vivid. We dated for 4 years, and I thought we had a great relationship. We were both established professionals, each with our own homes in the same neighborhood, and both had daughters living with us. Her daughter was 11, and mine was 16 when we met. We had plans to marry, build a house, and raise our daughters together. She had recently been diagnosed with a neurological disease that would eventually require her to use a wheelchair, so we were designing a home that would be ADA friendly. I invested around $30,000 into her house, doing landscaping and construction to increase its resale value. We had an agreement that I would be paid upon the sale of her home, but I never pushed for it. Fast forward 6 months. We were looking at properties and finalizing drawings for our new home when I started feeling unwell. I couldn't eat, was constantly vomiting, and noticed blood. My abdomen became swollen, which was unusual since we both maintained healthy lifestyles. I went to the doctor, and during this time, she began experiencing cognitive issues due to stress at work, leading her to take a pay cut. After a month of tests, I learned I had a golf ball-sized tumor in my stomach and would need chemotherapy. As I began treatment, she spent more time at my place, helping me out. I suggested we sell one of our homes and move in together until our new house was built. I had good insurance and a long-term illness plan, which would ease our financial burden. But shortly after that conversation, she grew distant. Her daughter stopped spending time with mine, and she made excuses to avoid seeing me. Then came the shocking text, "I love you, but I can't see myself taking care of someone this sick in the long term. I don't think we should see each other anymore." It broke me. I had opened my heart to her after losing my wife when my children were so young. The next day, I packed her things neatly and left them on her porch to avoid an awkward encounter. As I walked around to the back, I saw her on the couch with a man she had introduced as a lifelong friend. I had shared meals and vacations with them. I chose not to confront her and simply texted that her belongings were on my porch. Months later, I learned from his ex-girlfriend that they had been involved for some time, right around when we were finalizing our plans. I was furious and felt a need for revenge. I had finished my treatments and was feeling better when I found a file containing $32,680 in unpaid invoices for the work I had done on her home. I sent them to my attorney to start lien proceedings. It turned out I acted just in time. She was about to sell her house. With interest and attorney fees, she ended up with about $10,000 after selling her home, forcing her to back out of buying another and move in with her daughter and grandchildren. She even had to leave her job and go on disability. I ran into her a year later, and she looked like she had aged 20 years, now in a wheelchair. We exchanged brief pleasantries, and I moved on. A few days later, her younger daughter reached out, wanting to hang out. I gave a vague answer and continued with my life. Then her ex called to apologize for how she left me. I thanked her for the call, but kept it short. She started texting me, and after a few weeks, she asked if we could rekindle our relationship. I replied, "I can't see myself taking care of someone so sick in the long term. Remember the box on your porch? Did you think your friend brought that over from my house? Good luck to you. Goodbye." Sometimes I feel a twinge of guilt over this, but not often. You want it? No problem. I have to admit, I really dislike my mother-in-law. She's one of the most self-centered people I've ever met. Just being around her feels like a black hole of misery and anxiety, sucking the joy out of everything. Thankfully, she lives in Long Island and rarely ventures out, so we only see her once or twice a year. We have 3 kids, and she's only visited one of them in the last 5 years. But she had no problem driving 30 minutes to buy a lamp at an auction in Greenwich, Connecticut. It's frustrating. About 5 years ago, my wife and I bought her uncle's cabin in upstate New York. It sits on a beautiful 17 acres. The cabin was a bit run down, but we fixed it up and try to visit as often as we can in the summer. The property came with a few sheds filled with tools and 2 old Ford tractors. When we bought it, we specified that all contents convey. Her uncle didn't care about the stuff. It was just taking up space. After the sale, my mother-in-law called, claiming she had items there that belonged to her. She insisted that a chainsaw, one of the tractors, and a shop vac were hers, along with a bunch of random tools she didn't even know how to use. My wife was taken aback, and we told her she should have come to get everything before we closed. We didn't mind selling the tractor and getting her the money, but she insisted on keeping it. We explained that we needed to get rid of the tractor to make room for a garage. She threatened to sue us if we sold any of her stuff. My wife was really upset, but I told her not to worry. I'd handle it. The next weekend, while we were upstate, I rolled the tractor out of the shed and gathered her mother's items. My wife asked what I was doing, and I told her I was preparing to give her mom her stuff. She didn't care. So I decided to take it a step further. That night, after everyone fell asleep, I hatched a plan. I quietly loaded the non-working tractor onto my trailer, along with her toolbox, the chainsaws, the shop vac, and all the miscellaneous tools into a large wooden crate. I had to be careful to keep the noise down, but I managed to get everything loaded up and hit the road. It was a 2.5-hour drive to her house, and I arrived around 2 a.m. I backed into her driveway, set up the ramps, and unloaded everything as quietly as I could. I was amazed I hadn't been caught yet. After about 20 minutes, I was out of there, grinning from ear to ear. I knew I'd be in trouble with my wife in the morning, but I couldn't help but laugh. On the way home, I stopped to grab breakfast for everyone, bagels, coffee, and donut. I was practically giggling to myself. When I got home, my wife asked why I still had the trailer hooked up. I played it cool, saying I wasn't sure I was going to the lumber yard. I was buzzing with adrenaline, waiting for the inevitable call. Around 9:15, my phone rang. I saw her look at her phone and roll her eyes. I encouraged her to pick up, and as soon as she did, I could hear her mother screaming on the other end. My wife was confused, so I put the call on speaker and said, "You wanted your tractor? You got it," before hanging up. I explained what I'd done, and thankfully, my wife found it hilarious. My mother-in-law called several more times, but we didn't answer. She even texted that she was calling the police. My wife started to panic, but I reassured her I'd handle it. Around 1 p.m., I received a call from the police. I calmly explained the situation to the officer, who quickly realized how unreasonable my mother-in-law was being. He informed her that unless she had proof of ownership or a storage agreement, there was nothing they could do. In the end, she didn't talk to us for 6 months, which felt like a win for me. Want to constantly complete do-good tasks on my property despite being told multiple times not to? I'll make sure you have the attention of the entire neighborhood at 6:30 a.m. so you get the recognition you're so desperate for. I know this could be worse and it's not the end of the world, but it feels like death by 1,000 cuts to my patience with this guy. He just doesn't understand boundaries. He lives in a run-down apartment next door, and our homes are separated by a small grassy lot that we own. Yet, he takes it upon himself to come onto our property and help without asking. I come from a rural area where privacy and respect for boundaries are the norm, but for some reason in this town, people just tolerate it. My fiancé has kindly, and not so kindly, told him to stop. We can take care of our own, but it doesn't sink in. Family tries to guilt us for being irritated because he has such a big heart, but they don't have an unwelcome guy lurking around their home every chance he gets. So I really don't care what they think. He often comes onto our property and goes behind our shed to retrieve our garbage and recycling bins at 8 a.m. the day before trash pickup, dragging them up our driveway and waking me up on Sundays with my dog barking. Once he cleaned up while we weren't home, raking an area of our backyard and even ripping out a shrub my fiancé and I planted together. That shrub was symbolic for us, and it hurt to see it gone. He also trimmed weeds on the other side of our home, and I later caught him on his hands and knees rearranging the little flags we had stuck in the ground. He's approached me in my driveway to start pointless conversations as I'm coming or going. One time, I came home in the middle of a breakdown, crying over something, and he walked right up to my driver's side door, leaning against my house and chatting away, completely oblivious to my distress. I just fled in my car to escape. The other day, after the first snow, he came into our driveway and cleared the snow off my work vehicle and one of my personal cars parked on the street. I was furious. This morning, I snapped. At 6:30 a.m., on a day I could sleep in, I woke up to the sound of scraping because he was shoveling the tiny bit of snow on our sidewalk right outside my bedroom window. I rushed downstairs just in time to see him 2 inches from my living room window, wedged between my work vehicle and the house, clearing snow off my car. I grabbed my keys, and the moment he touched my personal vehicle, I hit the panic alarm. He stopped and stared at the house until the alarm stopped. When he tried to continue, I hit the panic again. He looked annoyed and walked away, scraping his way back to his home, where he belongs. You want attention for being so helpful? You got it. Stay away from my house, stay off my property. Stay out of my driveway, and keep your hands off my vehicles. I can't wait to move back to the country and leave this fishbowl behind. Until then, my petty level will be at 1,000, with my car keys in hand. Because apparently, this guy needs to be trained like a dog, where beep means no. Some assembly required. Good luck. This happened several years ago when I was the night charge nurse over the ICU. After a long 12-hour shift that turned into 14 hours due to a rapid response right before shift change, I was exhausted. All I wanted was to grab some items for my slow cooker so I'd have something to eat later. I stopped at a well-known big box store that sells everything from groceries to clothes. I was still in my royal blue scrubs, wearing my RN badge and my stethoscope hanging around my neck. As I approached the store, I noticed an elderly couple struggling to load a large box into their SUV. They looked to be in their 90s, with shaky hands and limited mobility. I quickly offered to help, and they gladly accepted. I managed to load their TV with little difficulty while chatting with the woman, who explained it was a gift for their son. I wondered why no store employee was assisting them when suddenly I was interrupted. A woman in her 50s, dressed in a cheap beige pantsuit, called out to me from about 15 feet away. With her hand on her hip, she demanded, "If you are about done, I need help over here." She pointed to her cart filled with boxes of bookshelves. It dawned on me that she thought I worked there. I tried to explain, "Oh, sorry, I don't work here." But she cut me off, saying, "You're already making me late. Just get it done, and don't scratch my paint." The elderly lady and I exchanged bewildered looks. I tried again, "I don't work here," but she interrupted once more, insisting I help her. As she turned away to dig through her purse, the cart mulled away, and one of the wheels went off the curb. In an instant, the cart toppled over, spilling the boxes onto the pavement. I instinctively jumped forward to help, but it was too late. The woman turned and saw her boxes scattered everywhere. She completely lost her temper, yelling, "What are you doing? Pick them up. You owe me new bookshelves." At that moment, I had enough. I shouted back, "Pick them up yourself. I don't work here." As I turned to walk away, she grabbed my sleeve and tried to yank me back. I pulled away and faced her, now furious. "Don't touch me. I do not work here, and even if I did, I wouldn't help you clean up your mess." She stood there, speechless, her mouth opening and closing in disbelief. Just then, the manager and an employee appeared. The woman quickly turned to the manager, claiming, "This man damaged my bookshelves and is refusing to pay for them." I was stunned. Did she really think anyone would believe that? Thankfully, the elderly gentleman I had helped earlier stepped in and explained the situation to the manager. The manager realized the truth and apologized to me and the couple. As I stood there, watching the manager deal with her, I noticed the boxes were not damaged. He offered her replacements, but she refused, saying she was already late because of me. She glared at me as the manager and employee loaded her boxes into her car. As I turned to enter the store, the elderly lady I had helped earlier stopped me. "Thank you so much for helping us with the TV. I'm sorry some people are so rude." She reached for my hand to shake, but then whispered, "Don't look yet. Wait till she leaves." I felt something in her palm as she folded her hands around mine. After she walked away, the woman got into her car and drove off without a word. Once inside the store, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a plastic bag filled with screws and hardware. I realized the sweet old lady had taken advantage of the commotion to snag the hardware from the woman's ripped box. I couldn't believe it. A huge grin spread across my face as I continued my shopping, feeling like I had a new petty revenge hero to admire. You give me an unwanted midnight concert, I give you an unwanted wake-up call. This story takes place back in 2009, 2010, when I was an undergrad at a small state college. The campus was beautiful, but getting to class was a challenge due to the steep hills. With the dorms perched at the top, if you forgot something, you had to sprint back up, which was nearly impossible if you had back-to-back classes. I lived in the same dorm room all 4 years and had 3 different roommates. My first roommate didn't return after the first semester, and my second-year roommate never showed up. By my 3rd year, I got along well with my roommate, but he joined the campus EMT team and moved to a different dorm. That's when I met M, an exchange student from the Netherlands. At first, I thought it was cool to meet someone from another country, but it quickly became clear we were not compatible. I'm pretty introverted and usually kept to myself, often playing video games with headphones on to avoid disturbing anyone. M, on the other hand, was all about the college experience. He frequently returned late with friends, blasting music and chatting away, often around midnight. I would politely ask them to turn it down so I could sleep, and while they complied, it was only temporary. This nightly disruption turned into a constant annoyance. I was a morning person, waking up around 4:30 or 5 to get my day started. I always tried to be courteous, turning off my alarm quickly and avoiding bright lights. But after months of M's late-night antics, my patience was wearing thin. When the new semester started, M returned, and things only got worse. More friends and louder music. I found myself asking him to be quiet almost every night, and my politeness was fading. Then came my breaking point. One particularly loud night, I decided to make him feel my pain. The next morning, I got up and left my alarm blaring. I cranked up my stereo loud enough that there was no way he could ignore it. I got ready for my day with all the lights on, opening drawers and doors with no regard for his sleep. When M finally turned over to ask me to keep it down, I locked eyes with him and stayed silent. I wanted him to realize how unfair his behavior had been. After a few moments of awkward silence, he must have understood that I wasn't going to back down. He rolled over, pulled the blanket over his head, and endured the chaos. I finished getting ready, turned off the alarm and music, and slammed the dorm door on my way out. I never brought it up with M, but he clearly got the message. For the next couple of months, he was respectful, wearing headphones, and coming and going quietly while I was sleeping. It's disappointing that someone needed such a wake-up call to understand how to share a living space. Don't be like M, or you might just find yourself in for a rude awakening. Update: I keep meeting my birth mom, but she doesn't know it's me. Well, I did it. I told her. And yes, it was pretty heavy. My heart was racing as I tried to figure out how to share this news. Many of you suggested I write her a letter, just like she wrote one for me. That was the plan, but I felt I needed to say it face to face. First, I want to express my gratitude for all the love and support I received, especially from the birth parents who shared their stories. Your words gave me the courage to confront her, and it meant so much to me. Everything happened the day before yesterday. I waited for her to finish her shift at the restaurant, hanging out in the parking lot. When she saw me, we exchanged hellos, but I quickly told her I had something serious to share. I apologized for keeping this from her for so long, and her reaction was overwhelming. When I pulled out her letter, she started crying and screaming. And I didn't even have to finish my "I'm your son" speech. She just knew. In an instant, she hugged me tightly, then pulled back to ask if it was okay to hug me again. Of course it was. We stood there, embracing and crying in the parking lot. It hit her hard. Her legs gave out for a moment, and I had to hold her up, while she stayed wrapped in my arms. What really touched me was when she looked at me and said, "Look how big you've gotten." Hearing her cry made me tear up too. She insisted on reopening the restaurant, and we shared coffee and a slice of pie while talking for hours. We covered so much ground. She mentioned that the second time I visited the restaurant, she had a feeling, but struggled to believe it was really me. For years after my adoption, she would see kids my age and wonder if they were me, often crying in public. It deeply affected her, and she didn't want to get her hopes up when she saw me. She told me I looked so much like my biological dad when he was younger. They had stayed in touch, hoping I would reach out someday, which made me feel relieved. I had lost hope about finding my biological dad since he was never mentioned. Hearing that they planned for this possibility was comforting. She shared how much they wanted to keep me, especially my biological dad, who didn't want me to be adopted. But they weren't just kids themselves, and it took him a long time to move past it after I was born. That's why he didn't leave anything behind. He didn't want to believe he might never see me again. We talked until almost 2 a.m, long after the restaurant closed. She wanted to know everything about my life, but her main concern was whether I was happy and if my parents treated me well. I told her I had a wonderful childhood and thanked her for giving me this life. We both cried again, with her shedding the most tears. She hoped I would find her after my 18th birthday, which is why she stayed in the same city. Since I hadn't reached out, she worried I might resent her or that I hadn't been told I was adopted. That made me feel bad for not telling her sooner, but she reassured me it wasn't my fault and that I did the right thing by going at my own pace. Honestly, she's so sweet. The way she looked at me with such a big smile sometimes made me emotional. It's incredible how someone who was a stranger my whole life could look at me with so much love. We learned so much about each other, and she asked if we could have dinner soon to continue our conversation. She even invited me to her house to meet her husband in the future, which sounded great. We exchanged numbers, And after I left, she texted me, thanking me for giving her a gift she never thought would come. When I got home, my girlfriend hugged me while I cried. But these weren't sad tears. They were happy ones. Everything went better than I expected. Yes, it was emotionally heavy, but I'm so glad we opened up to each other.